Have you ever met a stranger, but felt like you had known them for a very long time? No need for many words, no clear reason, just one glance, one moment. And you know that encounter means something. Carl Jung called it synchronicity, when your soul sends a signal and the universe responds. This video isn't about perfect love stories, but about those who help you recognize yourself, about strange encounters that, after they happen, make it impossible for you to return to who you were. If you've ever felt someone walk into your life at just the right moment, not to stay forever, but to awaken you, then this video is for you. Stay until the end. Maybe you'll understand why some people appear not to love you, but to awaken you. 1. A meeting with yourself. In New York, the city of destined crossroads, James, a 35-year-old designer, was attending a seminar on depth psychology. He wasn't expecting anything grand. He simply came to listen, to recharge after a turbulent year. But as he stepped into the auditorium, James felt something unusual. Not the lighting, nor the topic of the talk. It was the woman sitting in the third row, 2 seats in front of him. They had never met. There was nothing striking about her. Simple brown hair, a beige sweater, and a notebook gently resting on her lap. But the moment their eyes met, James felt his heart pause. It wasn't love at first sight. It was a feeling of déjà vu, as if he had known her in another lifetime, or in a forgotten dream he couldn't quite name. Carl Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, meaningful coincidence. Jung believed not everything happens due to linear cause and effect. Some moments arrive like echoes from within, taking form in the shape of another person. When your inner world is ripe, the outer world will answer. And kindred souls will find each other, not through effort, but through silent resonance. Like 2 strings on the same frequency. When one vibrates, the other responds. James didn't speak to her that day. But throughout the talk, as the speaker mentioned the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject, James found himself looking at her not just with his eyes, but with memory. Not literal memory, but something deeper. Intuition. After the seminar, they happened to walk the same way. Neither of them rushed, and when he spoke the first words, "That talk reminded me of an old dream." She smiled. I felt that too. No further explanation was needed. Some people come into your life not to stay, but to awaken a part of you that you've forgotten. It could be your vulnerability, your creativity, or a long-buried wound you've been trying to hide. Their presence, however fleeting, is enough to touch something deep inside you. They don't do anything extraordinary, they just show up. And their presence allows you to see yourself not through the lens of defense, but of truth. James didn't know if he would ever see her again. But from that day on, he started painting again. The same paintings he stopped 3 years earlier after his father passed away. He no longer searched for meaning through success, but listened for meaning rising from within. And sometimes, all you need to begin that journey is a stranger who makes you feel like you've come home. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Perhaps those who make us feel destined aren't miracles from outside, but awakenings from within. 2. When you're ready, they will come. In the peaceful suburbs of Austin, Texas, where oak trees cast shadows over sunlit walkways, Claire lived alone in a small red brick house after a painful divorce. 3 years passed, no dating, No waiting for surprise calls or late-night messages. She no longer sought love the way she used to, not as something to fill a void or offer salvation. Instead, she turned inward. Each morning, she made tea, opened the window, and wrote quietly in her journal. Some days, just a few lines. Other days, it was a quiet storm of release. She learned to meditate, not to control her thoughts, but to realize that they came and went like clouds. Claire began to listen to the parts of her soul she had ignored during her old marriage, the wounds, the fear of abandonment, and the quiet dream of freedom. Carl Jung once said, "You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are." When you begin to touch your inner self, not just the beautiful parts, but also what you've avoided, your inner vibration changes. And that very shift causes the world around you to respond differently. Not with miracles, but with a deep resonance between your inner state and your outer reality. One early autumn day, while Claire was shelving books at a local bookstore where she worked part-time, a man walked in. He asked for a book by Carl Jung. Strangely enough, Claire was reading the same one. They started talking, unhurried, natural. Their conversations continued weekly. Neither of them pursued the other. They simply let the connection unfold. No rushed promises, no attempts to fill a void. But in each other's presence, they seemed to recognize a part of themselves, one that had been buried for too long. Jung called this the expression of archetypes, such as the anima and animus, inner elements that reflect the feminine and masculine energy within us. When Claire felt truly seen, not because she tried to be strong or gentle, but simply by being herself, she realized that the significance was not in who the other person was, but in what they awakened within her. Love was no longer a place to escape loneliness, but a space to bravely reflect on one's true self. And when you are healed enough, honest enough, still enough inside, the right person will arrive, not as a puzzle piece to complete you, but as a mirror reflecting that you are ready to move forward, not dependent, not afraid, simply in the right moment. 3. As if you've known them before. Marcus had once been a Marine, stationed in the Helmand province of Afghanistan, where even the sandstorms felt gentler than what war had left in his soul. After returning to Seattle, he lived a quiet life in a small apartment near Gasworks Park. Restless sleep, sudden nightmares, and constant vigilance gradually pushed him away from all relationships. He didn't believe he could be understood, or that he even deserved to be, because some pain lives too deep for words to touch. Everything began to shift during a community therapy session for veterans, not because of breathing exercises, nor the calming music playing softly in the room, but because of Lena, a volunteer nurse who didn't try to fix him. She simply sat there, sometimes listening, sometimes just being silently present, never demanding, never intimidated by his silence. And that, in a way he couldn't explain, made him feel safe. Not as if he had known her in this life, but as if she had appeared in a memory that logic could not access. Carl Jung once wrote that some connections aren't formed through interaction or reason, but emerge from a deeper layer, where archetypes dwell. Perhaps Lena embodied a long-dormant archetype in Marcus's unconscious, a symbol of nurturing, of healing femininity, of something he had lost amidst the smoke and fire of war. Her presence, so naturally, awakened it. Not with noise, not with words, just a glance, a nod, a wordless empathy between two broken inner worlds. Marcus began to open up, not to the group, but to her, little by little. One night, he wrote her a short letter, not about war, but about a dream he had as a child. He was running through the rain, and someone stood waiting for him at the end of the road. When he woke up, for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid. Not all relationships lead to love, and not everyone who comes into your life will stay. But there are those, even if they only walk with you briefly, who forever change the way you see the world. Jung believed that the spiritual memories they awaken within us are not merely nostalgic. They are reminders that the deepest part of us is still alive, and when that part is touched, we are no longer the same. Not because someone fixed us, but because they helped us remember who we once were and who we might become again. 4. Not perfection, but clarity. On a Sunday afternoon in Chicago, as the church bells rang through the crisp, early winter breeze, Elijah walked in as he did every weekend, not to search for anything specific, but to briefly escape the chaos of the outside world. He wasn't particularly devout, but there was something about this place. The candlelight, the scent of old damp wood, and the whispered prayers that made him feel held in a space where every scar could be forgiven. Elijah had gone through a long breakup, not because of arguments, but because the two of them had simply drifted apart. Since then, he lived with calm, with caution, and with a kind of detachment from intense emotions. That day, he saw her, a woman sitting at the end of a wooden pew, head bowed, shoulders trembling slightly. No one in the church seemed to notice, but for Elijah, that moment felt like someone placed a hand on his chest and whispered, "Pay attention." He didn't approach her. He said nothing. But their eyes met, just for a few seconds. And in that silence, something deeper than words emerged. Not attraction, not pity, but understanding without explanation. A kind of return without a map. Carl Jung once wrote, "Meeting the right person isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about meeting someone who brings you back to yourself." That is why some connections, even if fleeting, can touch the deepest part of your soul. Because they aren't built on actions, nor do they require long periods to develop. They are formed from resonance within the deeper layers of the unconscious. Perhaps the other person awakened something within you that had long been forgotten. An old dream, a hidden vulnerability, or simply the feeling of being truly seen for who you really are. Elijah and the woman didn't exchange phone numbers. They didn't plan to meet again, but in the following weeks, he found himself changing. Quietly, gradually. He began to write again, something he had abandoned since college. His writing was no longer about impressing others or chasing an unrealistic dream. It was simply to understand and to remember. To remember that once, in an old church, he had felt whole without needing a reason. Not everyone we meet is meant to stay in our lives forever. But some people, even if they're with us for just a few minutes, leave a mark like an engraving in stone. Because when someone makes you see yourself clearly, in a glance, in silence, you can no longer return to the unconscious state you were in before. And as Jung once said, once the truth is awakened, it can never fall asleep again. Encounters like that don't need to last, because what they awaken in you is already eternal. Closing period. Remember this, not everyone who appears in your life comes bearing a great destiny. But if someone makes you pause, look inward, and begin asking questions about yourself, then their presence is no accident. They may only walk with you for a short while, but they arrive at the right time, at the right frequency, to awaken something dormant in your soul. Carl Jung called this synchronicity. When the outer world mysteriously and meaningfully reflects the inner world. And sometimes, those seemingly random encounters are actually mirrors, helping you see your true self again. Not loud, not dramatic, but so profound that from that moment on, you are no longer the same, and the journey back to yourself quietly begins. If this video made you pause and reflect, that's exactly why it was created. Share your thoughts, because what you say might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If you found value in these small things, don't forget to like. And if you want to keep growing into a deeper kind of strength, not of muscle, but of presence, hit subscribe.